Welcome to DESC Careers. I'm so excited to bring an incredible guest with us here today. We have alumni student from 2015. We saw this young man, Utkarsh Singh, graduate from DESC and started his journey post-DESC. He went to study economics at the Brunel University, London. Utkarsh is currently working as a management consultant in the healthcare and finance industry. He has worked with top names in banking, finance, and the healthcare sector in the UAE. Apart from consulting, Utkarsh is building a logistics delivery startup that aims to deliver groceries to customers in 20 minutes, working with a huge number of partners to bring this facility to people in the UAE. Utkarsh and his team will be launching a test by the end of May with a final version set and ready and available at the end of June. Utkarsh, it is so incredible to have you here. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maria, for this opportunity. I'm greatly excited to want to really go through with you with such an opportunity and really inspire the next generation of desk leaders. I mean, desk is sort of my second home, so it's always. So whenever I pass Academic City, it's always there. Let's go there. It's like your second home. You should go meet there. So it's very close to my heart, and it's an honor to really be here and speak to the future, as we say, about how they can really pursue whatever they'd like to do.
So you were a student here at DESC. Let's bring that into context. What was it like when you were studying? Was there a business department at the time? And what A-level subjects did you take?
Right. So when I was studying there, it was, so let's say back in 2014. That's when I went from that's when I did my A levels. Let's say, right. That's when I started my AS, and at the time, I don't remember there particularly being a business subject. Maybe there was. I'm not sure. It's 7 years ago. But I do remember taking business in during my GCSEs, where I remember Miss Macaulay, who I think is still at the school, was our business teacher, right? And is she still a business teacher, or what does she do?
No, she's moved on to Scotland.
Okay.
She's moved to Scotland.
Oh, really? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. So back then, she was the only business teacher, if I'm not wrong, and there was, I think, Mr. Davis. He was another teacher. His wife was in what was it? I think she was teaching math. I'm not sure. And back then, there was a business subject, but there wasn't a lot of emphasis as there is now. Now, that's not just particular to desk. I think that's just the whole environment around entrepreneurship has really gone up in the past few years. Like a few years, I'd say in the past three years in the UAE at least.
Incredible. Okay, Utkarsh, I'm gonna jump in and just zone you into why you chose to be an entrepreneur. Most young people today are thinking about entrepreneurship, and as you mentioned, back in 2015, it wasn't as popular as it is right now. I think the pandemic has pushed more people into entrepreneurship, not out of choice, but out of necessity. But you made that choice. You were a young professional. You went off to study. Why did you decide to go down the entrepreneurial route as opposed to being a paid employee?
It's the sort of drive. So I've had an entrepreneurial drive since I was in university. If I have 2 minutes to explain my journey of how it's come so far, I'd love to do that. So in 2017, I was in university, but I didn't like it too much. It was too academically focused. It was, and I was doing economics, so that is academically very, very taxing as well. At least it was for me. I don't want to discourage any of the students sitting there from taking economics. If it's your thing, go for it. Right? We were all different people. So what I started doing was on the side, I saw that there was a demand in the university for delivering groceries. Now that was because if you wanted your groceries delivered, you'd have to go on Tesco's website, and it would come the next day. There was no service for if I want something in the next 10 minutes, it's not here. If I want something in the next 15 minutes, it's not here. And especially in the UK where labor is so expensive as well, and the whole infrastructure is quite it's slightly more pricier than Dubai. It's just so difficult to avail these kind of services. So what I did was I took some time off of university and I made a website on Wix. A lot of the students there must have heard of Wix. I'm no techie guy. You don't have to be any sort of you don't need to know any sort of particular skills when you start a business. You just have to do what you need to do and get what you where you need to be. Um, so I set up a website on Wix. I partnered up with a few local shops around me. Now these local shops are similar to the grocery stores you see in Dubai. So Choitrums or um, nothing like your Choitrums or Union Co-op or any of the big chains. But those small grocery stores in Dubai, in the UAE, you also call them bakalas or groceries in Dubai. So yeah, and so I partnered with a few shops around those. In the UK, you call them corner shops. And luckily, they were all Indian, so it was very easy to speak. So I come from an Indian background, so it was very easy to speak to them, very easy to bring them on board. Then the next thing I did was I bought a bike. I bought a delivery box for like £30, and then I started. I set up a website. I printed a few flyers. It wasn't even flyers. I went to the university library, printed a few designs I made on PowerPoint, and just distributed them around the library. And okay, is there a connection problem going on?
Keep going. It's car. We're recording.
Okay, okay, perfect. Right. So, and then we distributed the flyers, and in about 1.5 or 2 months' time, we had around, so in total, by the end of it, we had 400 to 500 orders going through. And the issue that came was in the UK, as a student, you're not allowed to indulge in business activities. So I had to eventually, bring this to a stop, right? Because when you're on a student visa, there are some things that are forbidden. And so back then, I chose to be an entrepreneur. One, I was bored. The second thing was because I really didn't want like I was very irritated with the fact that any sort of groceries you want have to come next day. I've been spoiled by Dubai, and I'm gonna admit that. Here you can call your local bakala, everything comes to you in 10, 15, 20 minutes. In the UK, you have to wait a day, or you have to trek to your nearest supermarket, and that in itself and it's a whole ordeal. And so that was back in 2017. Now, if you're asking me why I choose to be an entrepreneur, it's much more adventurous. You get to control a lot of the processes. It's something that you can control, right? I have one saying, and that's what I say to everyone. It's like the amount of money you make in your business, it's up to you, right? There can be a million excuses along the way that, um, you know, uh, if I start my own business, I won't be able to get that deal or this deal. That's always a way to get things done. So keeping that into account, now I'm moving away from consulting. I find consulting extremely boring as well. So I'm moving back to the whole groceries part of things, and it's very adventurous. There's so much to innovate in the field. And it all depends on timing. Like right now, we're trying to be the fastest grocery delivery service in the region, not just the UAE. So there's so much, and it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? The more you do, the more you like it. And I sort of got the same sort of a drive, same sort of a kick when I did it at university, and I just want to do it once again.
So your motivation was you saw a need in the market and you
Exactly.
decided to create something. A need
Yeah.
that was also a personal, I wish I could have this now, which
Yes.
is absolutely incredible. And would you say now that you're an entrepreneur and that you are meeting other entrepreneurs that this is a similar story for an entrepreneur, that the idea comes from an inspiration of something that they might have wanted or seen in a need for and decided, you know what, if I have this need, other people will too. Let me create a business from it.
Yes, most about if you want your business to sustain in the long term, your motivation needs to be something like it should come from your own personal need. Or yes, you can look at someone and say you can look at other people's problems and say I need to solve those problems, right? But it needs to come from some sort of a need, right? I like the first mistake I made was, let's say, before 2017, before I even started anything. There's a lot of micro ventures we went on to before as well. Is thinking of it as a money making thing. Never do that. Never ever do that. Your motivation is gonna drop because as if it's money related, your business isn't gonna make you money that quickly. That's sort of the reality of it. You'll take your first year to really learn about the industry, learn what people think about your idea, learn what direction to take based on whatever feedback you get. So that's what your first year in business is. It's learning. It's what learning. It's just learning for the first year, right? And usually when people start a business, they expect their business to explode. You know that if I start it now, in the next 10 days, they'll be like, why am I not getting sales? Why am I not getting any sort of numbers? What's happening? I'm spending money on everything, but no one's buying it. A huge chunk of any sort of business is new or old. It's really fitting yourself into the conscience of the people, and that takes time. So, coming back to your original question, yeah, it has to come out of some sort of need, strictly because it's you have to look at it in sort of the long term of things. If it comes from your own need, and it's a very dire need, it's something that you really crazily want to solve. That motivation sticks longer. So you have a much higher time frame to do the same amount of things, as opposed to you
Incredible.
saying, you know what, why am I not making? Like I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who start their businesses and they finish them and quit them in the first month or two, strictly because oh, Utkarsh, my money didn't make business. And I simply told them this: your need isn't big enough. Either your need isn't big enough, or your demand isn't big enough, or you haven't done your research. So it has to be from a deeply scented, so sort of a deeply set, uh, what do you say? Yeah, a deeply set need for something at least.
So would you say that your motivation can also be your greatest challenge?
It can, right? It definitely can. It should be your greatest challenge, but again, it shouldn't be that big of a challenge that when you embark on it, you think this is impossible, right? A lot of the time, that's what happens. You can set like a lot of people I see setting it's not an unrealistic challenge, but it's a challenge that will take you some time. Like setting challenges like the most common one I've seen is I want to be a billionaire. Right now, saying I want to be a billionaire in 1 year is not possible. It is in very, very, very exceptional cases. Very exceptional cases. Now, the only reason you will become a billionaire in a year is if someone magically comes and invests $5 billion in your business. That in the next 10 days of you starting it, or in the next few months of you starting it. Um, but as such, yeah, it should be a greatest challenge, but it should also be something that you can break down into small challenges and achieve, right? Because you also need that ongoing motivation when you're doing something.
Incredible. Let's move on to another question that I know the students will be listening in for and wanting a little more
Mm-hmm.
understanding. And I know this
Yeah.
next question is not something that your enterprise has gone through, but definitely something you have been thinking about. Let's start with
Mm-hmm.
IPO and what it means and what you learned about IPOs studying at university.
Okay, so an IPO, by definition, it's called an initial public offering. It's basically listing your company on the stock market or on the market. Like, let's give you guys an example. A very easy example would be, Maria, could you name me your favorite candy brand or your favorite brand of food? Like, just something. Just give me something to play
Haribo.
with.
Haribo.
Haribo, okay? So Haribo, you could either go and purchase directly at the Haribo factory and get it from there. You have to go to them, or you can purchase it from the market. It's similar to when you do an IPO. When a company doesn't offer its shares on the stock market, which is pre-IPO, you have to go to the company directly, speak to them, and you guys have to figure out a deal between yourselves. When you do IPO, you your shares are listed on the market. You are allowed to buy and sell as you want. You are allowed to do whatever you want with those shares. But yeah, so that's what IPO is basically listing your shares on the stock market, and then you can buy. That's direct access. You don't have to go through the company. You can buy them on the share market directly.
And why would an organization want to go public as opposed to just staying private?
It's okay. So, personally, as an entrepreneur, I would say, uh, like at least for the few, if some of the students have been up to date with the past few IPOs, Coinbase, this really big crypto platform, went public a month ago, or well, like a month and a half ago. Then Airbnb went last year. Uber went I think a year or 2 years before that. It's for an entrepreneur, it's a great mark of success. It's like it's like reaching like that sort of. I'm not saying it's the end of your entrepreneurial journey. It depends on what your goal is. Like for some people, the goal is money, so they go beyond that. You know, let's say we have someone like Jeff Bezos. He went public, but he's also, you know, he's making sure he can grow as much as he possibly can. For people like me, my aim is not purely at money. My aim is purely for, you know, I play with the stages. I'm very happy going from a startup to a sort of medium-sized company, from a medium-sized company to a large organization. From there we go public. From there we can do IPO. So for me, I think IPO would mark not the end of the journey, but sort of the last stage in a company's, I don't know, stages of growth, let's say, in terms, not in terms of financial stages, but just in terms of where it's at, you know, let's say it's stage of life, it's life cycle. So once you go IPO, it's a great mark of success. And why people do it, let's say in the business world, it's to raise money. There's a lot more, like let's say before you only have access to private investors who come and invest. They'll come and invest a few $1 million in big startups or a few thousands of dollars in small startups. But um, the stock listing your shares on the market is the same as you listing anyone listing a product in Spinneys, right? There's so many thousands and thousands of potential buyers, right? You have access to a large database of people, and that's the same with the share market. Once you list your stock on the share market, so many people have access to it. It's much more easier to raise more and more funds. And easily companies that go in the stock market raise monies in the millions or easily in the billions as well.
Thank
So
you.
that's one of the biggest reasons people go on there. Sorry.
Let's
Yeah.
move into the topic of technology. I
Okay.
mean, if we think about pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, or where we are right now through the
Right.
pandemic, technology has definitely taken a front seat to companies, regardless of what industry you're in right now. Even in
Exactly.
education, I mean, we are driven by survival based on our ability to use technology, which is something that, you know, pre-COVID, we never really would have thought about unless we were an online platform.
Yeah.
How has technology showed up for you in your enterprises, either as a consultant or in your up and coming enterprise? How has technology shown up, and how is it different than it would have been before? Or were you always equally driven with technology regardless of the pandemic?
So for me, regardless of the pandemic, this was a thing because I was working in this sector for let's say in grocery tech. Let's just call it grocery tech. I've been working in it for a while now, on the side. So for me, personally, it's been an ongoing journey. But in yeah, I mean post pandemic or mid pandemic, let's say right now we're still mid pandemic. Um, it's it's opened up a new dimension of services. Like when I say new dimension, it's, you know, everything now is starting to be home delivered to the point where any sin goods are being home delivered. I just wanted to ask, so this is an economics class or a business class, or it's both merged together?
We'll have students from both.
Okay, perfect. So the economics people must have heard of sin goods, definitely. Um, so I mean, sin goods are being home delivered, especially in a place like Dubai, where, you know, sin goods like alcohol or anything are not seen as sort of the best decision, or in terms of, you know, consume in terms of consumption. But so in that sense, technology has really. I mean, thanks to technology, I'm here talking to you guys. I'm at home. I'm in the comfort of my home, and I'm able to speak to a large audience and, you know, communicate with people all over the world. But it has also sort of brought a few challenges, let's say, right? Like speaking online is not always the best way of conveying what you really want to convey. So that's, let's say, in sort of the online meetings segment. Now, in terms of, let's say we go to grocery tech, in the UAE there have been some challenges that go with, there are not enough services compared to the population. Like relative to the population, there are not enough services. And I remember there was a time when platforms like InstaShop or El Grocer or any of these top grocery platforms, they were having issues. I mean, there was a time when you could just call them and they would deliver it the same day. And during, let's say, the lockdown, which was I think a year ago, um, it was they were full and there were no extra spaces. You would get your order a few days or even a week later in some cases. Some people didn't even receive their stuff, right? So in terms of scale, there's still a massive amount of scaling that needs to be done in the UAE, definitely, right? Coming back to how I've been affected by it or how I've been using it. In the consultant world, again, it's full of meetings and researches. The consulting world hasn't changed much. You research your client, you research what they do, you research their industry, you go and speak to them, you help them out, you advise them. Um, the only change that has happened is instead of meeting them from up front, taking them for dinners, taking them it has saved consulting firms a lot of money because definitely when you're meeting clients, you have to take them for expensive dinners. You have to make your case basically. You have to do everything you can. But now the pandemic has given reasons to not spend all that money and instead resolve all those things online. So it has definitely helped us cut costs over there. But at the same time, again, because of the pandemic, not a lot of people are sort of willing to spend the money to go with consultants because consultants have rather become a luxury in this sort of a market where, you go to consultants when you want advice. And, you could rather take free advice from people around you than pay someone loads of money to do it. That's not to say that consulting firms are still not working; they're still going on. But again, the business has been slightly affected in the past year.
So
Um,
technology definitely something that young budding entrepreneurs need to be paying attention to. Are there any specific platforms that you use personally as an entrepreneur that you think definitely something to think about? I heard you say using Wix to create your first website.
yeah.
We're on Zoom right now. Are there any other
Hmm.
type of tech platforms that entrepreneurs would find great and useful and things
Sure.
to be thinking about?
So, like, let's say right now there's a huge fashion of applications or mobile apps coming up, and a huge issue I saw in that, even when I was getting my website or app and everything developed, was that there was no drag and drop type of thing. So Wix is easy for people because you can just drag things onto the main screen and you can write whatever you want and it displays and it looks like a good website. So I'd like for anyone trying to make an app or anyone trying to pursue that sort of a thing, I can recommend two platforms. One is called glide.io. It's where you go and you can make any sort of app on there and it's very cool. You can make anything. It's very seamless and you can get it working right away. It's like a Wix for apps and it's very quick. It works well as well too. Another one I would recommend is called Flutterflow. Flutterflow. I'll if you want I'll just write the names
Yeah,
in
go
the
for it.
thing. Flutterflow and glide.io. Okay. Right, and these are free, so you guys should start experimenting with them as soon as you can. One advice I'd like to give everyone here is that start experimenting at whenever you can. It doesn't have to be that once you're post college or once you're post university. There's no set timeline for this kind of thing. It's one thing I tell myself a billion times, and I wish I had listened. Is that I wish when I was at school I had experimented more because this is the time when you get to experiment, right? I know you guys are, you guys have exams coming up. I assume are there exams coming around or not yet?
They will be, yes, in the
Okay,
class.
right. So,
Yes.
right. So you guys are probably busy with exams right now. But whenever you get time, maybe in your summer holidays or maybe some days you get off school, just look at an industry, look at some ideas, and work on them. Even if you don't want to go into that industry, even if you don't want to go into the entrepreneurship path, because it still teaches you a lot about how the industry will work. This will help you a lot, even if you want to find a job. This will help you a lot. You'll get something to put on your resume, which is when I was looking for my first job, which was in 2018. I was just saying to myself, I wish I had done these few things. So get out there and experiment as much as possible. One, it'll definitely help you out in the long term.
Incredible. Now, let's talk about some of the hurdles being an e-commerce platform. The one thing that comes to my mind, Utkarsh, when I think about e-commerce is how on earth can you ensure that you're seen? I know in the past, growing up in
Hmm.
my time, there was no such thing as e-commerce. And,
Hmm.
you wanted to buy something, you'd go to the mall. And if I
Yeah.
owned the shop, I would select the mall that would have the
Mm-hmm.
most traffic, that I know my brand could get seen
Yep.
and get that
Mm-hmm.
visibility. But as an
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce platform, what are some of the hurdles and what are some of the problems that you're or potentially preparing to face so
Mm-hmm.
that you can get found, you can get seen, that people are actually able to use your service so that you can be competitive?
Right. So one of the major things we're working on is pricing. Pricing is very important. Like our like with the model we're going with, our delivery charges are like 50% of what they are at the industry standard, right? So pricing is usually that does attract a few people, but pricing alone does not get the job done. So pricing plus a hard hitting marketing campaign. Now, by hard hitting, I mean we're working with all sort of social media influencers, we're working with all sort of newspapers and magazines to really get the name out there. At the end of the day, a customer or me or you, let's say, are more likely to order from a platform if they're trusted. If we get to see them, um, if we see their name somewhere, if we see them somewhere. Somewhere we trust. Like let's say when you go on Sheikh Zayed Road, you see a big company banner, but you might not go buy it, right? But you automatically know, yeah, that's a cool company that they have a big banner on Sheikh Zayed Road, so they must be doing something. So in that sense, so we're trying to put as many marketing tactics as we can. One of the few hurdles are that there are already a few platforms out there in the same industry, but doing things a bit differently. Now, the issues we were trying to tackle are delivery times. One of the more important things with delivery time is if you go with any of the current platforms, they take at least 45 minutes to an hour to deliver to your house. And we're trying, or to anywhere you want to get delivered. And we're trying to cut that down by one third and bring it down to 20 minutes maximum, right? So we're trying to do what they're doing differently. Another hurdle is, these companies that are already there, they have a lot of cash to work with. So it's we don't have that same amount of sort of piled up money in our bank accounts as a startup. So it'll be very easy for them to catch up if they want. But that's where we're working very strongly to build ties with the partners we're working with, so that they're exclusive only to us, right? And that's sort of where our individual marketing capabilities come into play.
Incredible.
And
Thank you so much.
yeah,
One more question before we take it to
yeah,
the Q&A with our students.
sure.
Utkarsh, you're a young man. You
Yeah.
graduated in 2015.
Mhm.
You're an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
You're already striving at a level that some of your peers would not even be able to understand, because they would have gone down that very traditional get a job, work in a
Mhm.
in a company, and try to
Right.
grow within that way.
Mhm.
I know that you said that you were always entrepreneurial even when you were at uni. Do you still see
Mhm.
yourself on this journey as an entrepreneur in the next 5 to 10 years? I know that's quite far in the distance to think
Mhm.
about, but can you still see yourself doing this when you think of the future of your career?
I'll tell you this, Maria. This is me for the next 50 years. I love doing this. It's such an adventurous path to take. There is hurdles. There's a lot of stress related to it. There's a lot of like I'll tell you one thing. I started the grocery initiative in December 2020. And I can tell you one thing. Since December 2020, I haven't had one peaceful night of sleep. But the thing is, when you look at, so that's what I'm saying, right? That's where your motivation comes into play. I'm so passionate about solving this timing issue that because I see my own mother going through the same thing, right? She orders something online, it the problem persists, or you have to go down to your local supermarket, spend 10-20 minutes there, then come back, right? Which on its own becomes a whole different type of ordeal. Um, so especially in the grocery tech space, like so when we plan for 10, 20 years ahead. So we have a list of things we want to do for the next 10, 15 years, right? So right now what we're working on is just software based, but then by 2023 March, we want to start on hardware as well in the grocery tech business. So that's the thing. Once you start, you should know how long you're in it for, right? You can't, especially it's especially if you want to see your business succeed. Now, there are people I've seen who Like just yesterday, I think I saw a headline where one of the people I know in this industry, they started a business last year. This year they sold it for $20 million, right? Now $20 million is a big amount of money, but if you look at how much return that same entrepreneurial venture could have given you, let's say in the next, you know, take that same venture 2 or 3 years past, I in my opinion, that was a sort of a loss. Now, again, everyone has their own conditions. Everyone is different. Everyone has their own sort of borders they want to reach. Now, maybe for the person who sold it for $20 million, maybe that was enough, right? For some people, 10 million is a ceiling. For some people, a billion is a ceiling. For some people, 10 billion is a ceiling, right? But like for me, again, it's more about solving the issue. And like for us, we're working till we can get groceries to your house in 5 minutes, right? That's an unheard of number, and we have machine learning and engineers working in the back, making sure we can somewhere implement this sort of a software or this sort of a software hardware combination where things really get to you. We also want to make it more automated. We want to introduce sorry, we want to introduce automated grocery delivery. What do you call robots that really come to your place where we remove the human element, so it's more accurate and less human interaction necessary there. So no, so that's the thing. Like for me, I've seen how looking at an industry short term feels like, which is what I did in 2017, 2018. Where I looked at something, I liked it, it was okay, but then I moved on to the next thing, and now I've sort of come to a mental stage where I've chosen my industry, and this is what I want to do, and
So
that
you're
works best.
definitely an entrepreneur. That's it. This is you,
Yeah,
excited,
exactly. This
visionary,
is
planning
yeah,
ahead.
exactly.
Incredible. We had a question coming in from one of our students asking,
Sure.
do you think that studying economics at university has benefited you in your entrepreneurial life? And if so, in what way? How has it benefited you?
Right. So, great, great question, by the way. In entrepreneurial things, economics helps you understand the overall picture of whatever industry you're in, right? And that definitely will help you with some insight. It helps you analyze what's going on, right? Now you have your supply and demand graphs and whatever other graphs there are, right? They will they will help you analyze an industry better than, someone who just looks at, he goes outside, goes to a grocery store, sees a few things and just, says, yeah, maybe this problem exists. Or you could take the root of the root in economics, which really helps you analyze the whole situation properly, which helps you see. Now I know it's all about unemployment and supply and demand and all that, but you still need those sort of analyses in your library of things when you're really going to solve an issue. Um, so it has definitely helped, and I'm not saying it's the core factor, but it has definitely helped. So, but then again, when you're doing a business, you pick up all these things on the side. But the advantage you have with doing economics is you already have this knowledge, and then you're going into this. And plus, when you've done
Fantastic.
economics, people just perceive you as to know a bit more than just business. So it always helps you in that sort of a way when people it helps. Your first impressions are gonna be the most important. So let's say like for me, when I tell people when I go and meet investors and I tell them, oh, I've done economics, they automatically think, yeah, so this guy has some sort of strong backbone, right? Economics. Now, if I had told them, um, I've only done business, people don't look at business in a sort of they don't look down on it, but when you tell them you've done economics before as well, it shows them, yeah, you have some sort of expertise, and then they'll speak to you on that sort of same floor, same level.
So no regrets. Economics definitely benefited you.
Yeah, definitely.
Super. We had another question coming in. I know
Sure.
you talked about the future of being an entrepreneur, and you definitely see that in your future. Do you have
Uh-huh.
any intentions to expand? And if yes, are you thinking organic or inorganic?
Definitely. Expansion is in our plans. Like, so we aim to be a regional platform. So we want to start in Dubai, but then we want to go to obviously the whole of the UAE. Then because I've grown up here, I've grown up in the Middle East. I was born in Bahrain, and from Bahrain I moved to Qatar. From Qatar, I moved back to Bahrain, and from Bahrain I came to Dubai. And then some for some parts I for very few stints. I lived in Saudi Arabia as well, and so it's like this whole region is home to me. So it's come to a point where I find this region more homely than my home country, which is India. Um, so just and so just because of that, I know the market. I know the people here. I know their mentalities. I know what they understand and what they don't. I know what's going to get through to them and what's not. So keeping that in mind, we're definitely going to expand, and we're expanding. So Middle East, so Middle East and North Africa. That's our target market for now, and that's where we will be after 5 years of operating.
Already in the plan.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Another
yeah,
question just came in. I'm loving these questions, by the way. How
yeah.
do you intend on competing with existing companies?
Right. So pricing is a very big thing. So we're pricing them out like crazy. So what happens is in the grocery type businesses, you have two sides. Well, at least in the types that I'm entering. One is you have to negotiate with partners, partner stores being your Choitrums or any of the small stores or any other chain. And then another is your 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 main customer, like you and me, who want to buy groceries, right? So we have sat and individually made plans on how to tackle each of those things. Like let's say when a lot of our targets partner store owners, right? We're mainly working with bakalas or grocery stores, the small stores in Dubai or the small stores in the UAE or the small stores anywhere in the region, right? So what we did was we sat down with them and we spoke to as many as we can. To date, we've spoken to around 270 shop owners in the space of a month and a half, right? So, and that's around 2 or 3 store owners, somewhere around that per day or something. Uh, so, you have to really get into the problem. You have to see, right? You can't just convince someone to get on board by not understanding them. Um, and by so we made sure. So big issue in this market was that other platforms were charging too much. So we came over that by firstly cutting the price. We're new. We don't have too many costs right now, so we can afford to really price out any other platform right out there. Other than that, we're working as much as we can to give out free deliveries, to give out sort of free offers. We're also working with influencers and everyone around to make sure we can, they can get our name out there. We're working there as much as possible with any of the top publishing names out there. Just you have to try and enter the conscience of the customer or the shopkeeper.
Being client centered as opposed to person centered, where you're thinking
Exactly,
about what you
exactly.
believe. It's really thinking about
Yeah,
your client's needs. All right,
exactly.
that's great. And competition is always something that we have to be thinking about, would you say,
You're right.
in any type of organization,
Mm-hmm.
whether we're working for a large organization
Mm-hmm.
such as Amazon, or we're working for a mom and pop shop or even our own startup. Competition is
Right.
always going to be out there. And I think, would you
Exactly.
agree
Exactly.
that many entrepreneurs are worried about the competition, but really the competition is kind of like the fire in the engine to keep you going and thinking about what else you can do to kind of stand out and go the extra mile?
You've hit the nail on the head with the last point you just said. Y- a lot, even for me when I was starting up, the first thing, my fear was competition. It's always like, what if someone copies you? What if someone who has more money comes with, can come on the table and just take over your customers, and you know, but that is the fire exactly. So that is the fire that keeps you going, right? I'm glad there's competition. You have to learn to accept it. And there's one statement I want all of you to really accept, all right? Um, don't ever fight with the competition, be different to the competition. It's very easy to just look at a competition and say, we're going to make something like them, but better, okay? Or you can look at the competition and say, we're going to make something different, right? And by different, I'm not saying, make something that's a complete 180, but offer services or offer additional, like all, at the end of the day, whatever you do is gonna come down to customer service. How you treat your customers, how you make sure all of their issues are solved, is up to the level of creativity that you have or your team has. So you have to make sure that you can look into the very little nuances of the issues and really bring those out. And trust me when I say this, the customer notices all the small things you do for them. anything, any small thing you can do for them, right? I was working. I wasn't working, but I was advising this other small startup based in the UAE. They're into peer-to-peer payments, where you basically you can send money to each other on your phones. And they were asking me the same thing. Utkarsh, we have the platform, we have the app, we have and it's a very beautifully designed app as well. And why aren't we getting it? And I told them one thing: there's a small nuance you're not appealing to. There's a, there are small there's a small the small changes you are not paying attention to. Maybe it's not convenient for them. Maybe it just maybe your onboarding process is too hard. Maybe you have to analyze all your steps a million times just to get a grasp of the problem. You can't just look at it once and say this is the problem. No, you have to look at it a million times. Uh, look at the small things that really matter, and that's how that's one of the most important things you have to do in terms of your competition. Your competition is never going to bring out, let's say you bring out a grocery delivery service, and your competition brings out a freaking gun or something. Like it's not. What I mean by that example is it's never going to be that different. But what you have to do is look at the nuances of what your competition is not solving, and there always will be some. There's never, when you look at an industry and say, oh no, that's complete, you won't be able to do anything after that.
So we can't fight this idea of a competitor. It's always going to be there. I just want to
Yes.
let everybody know listening in. I know that there's so many other questions. I'm going to keep going with Utkarsh. I know some of you are going to need to get to your next class. If you have any other questions, quickly put them into the chat box. And I'm going to thank you all for coming. You can watch the end of this interview that I'm going to keep having here with Utkarsh on the shared site in the June calendar. So thank you, year 10, year 11, and year 12, and maybe some of the year 13s are on site. Thank you, Mr. Gardner. And I'm going to keep going with Utkarsh, and I will see you all at the next spotlight. So
Perfect,
Utkarsh,
thank you so much for coming.
We've got some more questions that we couldn't get to. I just want to get to them really quickly before we say goodbye. I know we talked about competition, we talked about technology. There was a question about technology, and I know that you probably answered it, but just to answer this one quickly for our student here, the student asked, in recent years, technology is either the base of a firm or a major department in a firm, example, Google and Amazon. So for people who are interested in a completely different area, such as law or science, do you think that they can escape from technology in their future firms?
Could you please rephrase that? I didn't catch
I
that.
think
I'm
what
so
they're
sorry.
trying to ask is, if you are in e-commerce, such as Google or Amazon, it's, everybody knows you need technology. But what if you were a lawyer or you were a researcher? Do you think that you could escape using technology, or no? Do you think, no, you're still going to need it regardless of what you do?
No, like especially now, where not post-pandemic, but because of the pandemic, a lot of things have become clear to people that technology is what's going to keep things going. It's the reason we all can communicate, even besides roads being locked or lockdowns being put on. Um, so that's one of, but law is actually, especially in the law field, there's a lot of innovation going on in technology. Like they're making apps that can translate your terms and conditions. They're making it easier for lawyers to look up their whole book of laws in seconds. You just have to type a few things up and it just comes up. Or they're using artificial intelligence and machine learning both mixed together to make sure um, you put in a certain problem into a machine, the solution comes out on its own. That what they're supposed to do. What sort of way you should take, right? So technology is now, it's just assumed, like it's a forever assumption. It's a part of your life now.
And would you
it's what's
say
going to
that
keep going.
would you say that a student should choose it as a subject at A level or GCSE? Do you think they should take it as a subject, or just learn to use it and grow with it?
Both. So you will have to do both. Now, I say that because in school they're going to teach a very theoretic side of it, with maybe some practicals happening here and there, now and then. But when you use it yourself, it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different sense of that. Now you're alone with the technology yourself, right? Now you will know your nuances, because it's normal. You won't know everything about the tech you're using. It's just it just is, especially if it's something new. So you will have to do both. Take the course in school. I'm sure it'll probably touch base on a few on a few basics of what the industry is about. But you will have to use it to really know, you know, where where you will go wrong or where a lot of people will go wrong. Like let's take the case of smartphones. Okay, right, and smartphones you imagine it being developed as an idea. You're sitting there, Steve Jobs comes up to you and says, we can. Steve Jobs didn't invent the smartphones, but I'm just sort of, that's where the sort of revolution began. Him saying that there's too much clicky clackety stuff on the phone, too many buttons. Let's remove all of those and put a screen. It'll become easier for everyone. Now that in theory sounds amazing, right? You remove all the buttons, you're interacting straight with the screen. It'll be much easier. But then when it came to practice, a big problem became there was a huge learning curve to it, right? You have to spend some time with it yourself to get to know it. Maybe it's not the best solution for you. In theory, it might sound like it is, but in front it won't. So it's very important to keep doing both. Learn whatever you can, but then practice it as well. Just to know that there will be a lot of blanks to fill, and just so you can come to know where you need to work or what you need to work towards.
Super. Let's keep going. I've got a couple more questions. Let's
Sure.
talk cryptocurrency. And in thinking, I have a question here that says, do you intend on using crypto as a form of payment? And speaking of crypto, do you think of investing or looking at more details into crypto?
Personally, not yet. I know a lot of people who are. Now, the cryptocurrency is a very new, different kind of because it literally brings the money making machine to you if you say it in sort of different terms. Because what's happening is people are working at home and they're making the currency essentially. Like you can print your own money is what's happening, right?
Fantastic.
Uh, yeah, sure. So because of that, it's a very new field. I personally am not thinking of getting involved. It definitely is going to be a big part of us in the next semi-decade or maybe 10 years later. But because there's governments like India, like big uh, countries like India, China, they're all developing their own currencies, right? But their own cryptocurrencies. So it is possible. So cryptocurrency will be a big part of our life, not right now, definitely not in the next few years, but definitely in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, it's going to be something big. So
if you're growing inorganically, I'm taking you in another direction just because I'm really
right,
conscious of your time, and also I've got a couple
right,
of
that's
students
fine.
that are going to need to get to their next class.
No worries.
Is
Yeah.
if you're growing inorganically, what
hmm
type of integration will you use?
So inorganic growth means forcing your growth, really. It A lot of the startups we've seen in the past few years have grown inorganically. Like we've seen people who started a business in 2015 or 16 being acquired this year for 500, $600 million, right? It's been a big it's a big jump from it because 5 years is not enough. I know businesses from 1970s or 1960s who still haven't been able to reach that mark, right? So what it generally means is in what we're planning to do is sort of go both routes. You have to go both routes. Otherwise, because if you don't get your product out there in the right amount of time, your product will be dead. That's a sort of that's a sort of situation that gets made if you don't. You have to do a healthy mix of both. You have to do inorganic and organic. And if we do an inorganic, we're basically, as I said, we're working with what do you say, startup platform. Sorry, uh, presses of all kind, media's of all kind. May that be social media influencers, as I said before as well. Press. Um, it's just getting the name out there as fast as possible. One, two. We're trying to grow as much as we can by lower prices. It's one of the best things. It's gonna attract people, right? I'll tell you what the prices are. Maybe you'll get a better sense of it. We're charging people 3 dirhams for the month, and you can order as much as you want, do whatever you want. It's on you, right? So we're so and our main growth is not going to be in terms of finances. It's going to be in terms of the users we get, right? So the more users you have, the more credibility your platform gets. and it just goes from there.
And what's the plan? How do you plan on keeping those prices low? I know you said it's not the cost per user, it's the number of users, but how do you intend on keeping that low? Is there a target that you need to be maintaining for you to keep it that low, or can you indefinitely keep it that low?
So we need at least 10,000 monthly users to keep it at a good profitable range, right? And to get at least a minimum 10,000 users, it's going to take at least a year and a half, 2 years maximum to get to that point. To get so that your minimum users is 10,000, not your max. Because when your max users is 10,000, your minimum is going to be anywhere around 800, 900. That's
wow. Utkarsh, I think
that's sort of the industry standard.
I think these questions were absolutely incredible, and I think some of their questions were a lot harder than the ones that Mr. Gardner sent you. But I just want to thank you so much for staying with us. This was an absolutely I'm going to say I think I said incredible like at least a dozen times. But what I think for me, what's the most inspiring is that I'm sitting in front of an alumni student, and I know that any of our leaders here at the college, we always talk to our secondary students and tell them that, you know, one day you're going to go out into the world and you're going to do great things, and we hope that you'll remember us. And when we started this interview, you talked about DESC being a part of you, and it's, you know, you think really highly on that. So for me to be able to interview you and bring this interview to our students it's absolutely inspiring, because they can see somebody who was just like them a few years ago, now coming back to share your stories of being an entrepreneur. And I know that if Mrs. McCulley does get to see this, she would be incredibly proud of having you here as well. And I know Mr. Davies is here and will probably still see this.
Perfect.
So we'll give him a big shout out. And that's it for us. Thank you, Utkarsh, for being here.
Perfect.
And thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you for this. Thank you for this opportunity. Just wanted to say, if any of the students want to get in touch with me, they can regarding any questions or what. I'm always open to help out anyone from DESC in any way possible. And it's been great speaking to you, because I've been thinking for some time as well that, you know, in the recent entrepreneurial sort of growth in the world, my first thought was, I really wish in some way or the form I could really speak with DESC so they could, you know, so we could really increase our entrepreneurial pizzazz. But then knowing that, you know, you're already there and you're doing all these great things, it just brings some sort of peace to the mind that, you know, at some point we will see more entrepreneurial leaders from DESC, definitely.
Oh, most definitely. Our business and economics department are working really passionately to make sure that our business and entrepreneur students are out there gaining opportunities to do just that. Thank you, Utkarsh, for being here. And thank you, everyone, for coming. And that brings us to the end of another incredible DESC Careers Spotlight interview with Utkarsh Singh, who is an alumni student and graduated from Dubai English Speaking College in 2015. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you very much, Maria.